Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome to All Things Brunswick. We have a great show today. I'm first going to introduce you to my co host, Todd Osborne. Thanks for coming back, Todd. We missed you last week. And our special person that we couldn't do anything without, TK. We love you, TK. Today we have with us the mayor of Southport, Rich Alt. Beautiful, beautiful little city. Lots of things to do in Southport. And we are very happy to have you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
So, before we talk about your beautiful little city, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised on Long Island, right where the dividing line between the suburban sprawl of New York City and the country of Long Island, which was all potato farms and sod farms and duck farms. Actually, when I was growing up, there was literally millions of Peking white ducks on Long Island.
Wow.
So it was a very great place to grow up. You didn't have to lock the doors. The harbor of Port Jefferson is almost the exact same dimensions as the harbor of Southport.
Really?
It's about 2.2 miles from when you're standing on the bulkhead to the entrance, and it was the same in Port Jeff. Port Jeff didn't open onto the ocean; it opened onto Long Island Sound. So.
How interesting.
And then I left there and went to work in Arlington, Virginia, in the police department in Arlington. I spent 30 years in Arlington. I retired as the captain of detectives, but I had other captain jobs along the way. I then left that and I went to work for an analytical component of the Department of Homeland Security that worked and supported the Office of the Secretary of DHS. I did that for 9 years. My wife came down in 2015, started work on the house, got the house built in 2016. It was finished. As you know, down here it takes at least a year to build a house.
Yes.
And and when that was all done, then I left my second job and I moved to Southport.
Great. So you've been here since 2016.
I've been here since 2016, but we've owned property in Southport since 2005. We bought the first piece of property. So we've been coming to Southport before that and got the local newspaper shipped up to us. So we've been following stuff since 2005.
And you became mayor last year?
I did. The election was in November. The swearing in was in December. And so since the middle of December of 2023, I've been the mayor. So about 7 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Still trying to sort everything out.
Oh, absolutely. Now I was an alderman before that, so I was elected 2 years before that as an alderman, and then I decided to run for mayor in this past election, and I won again. So there we had it.
That was a pretty tight race too.
It was a very tight race. It was I won by eventually it was 2 votes. Going into the last meeting, it was 1 vote, but I doubled my lead. I had a vote added to it. But an interesting aspect of that is really not the election for the mayor. There was 4 people who were running on one side, and they ran. They went to most of the meet and greets together. They acted. I don't know if they officially became an organization, but they always went everywhere. And they're at the strategic level. Theirs was, we're doing everything okay. Return us and we'll do everything the same way doing it. On the other side was a very loosely knit group of people, 4, that most their basic tenets were the same on we can do better and we need to bring some modern business practices to the city because virtually we had no rules and regulations on anything, from human capital to anything else. It was just vacant. And reasonable development. That was pretty much to them. So the other 3 candidates won pretty handily. So there obviously was a request for change about I would say probably the business practice more than anything else. Bring some policies, procedures in, bring not to not to change what the average citizen would know when they're walking down the street. We're not here to change it into Myrtle Beach or anything else,
Right.
but to change the efficiency of the government so that when we're looking for something or we're trying to do something, we have policies and procedures to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, up until recently, even our finance office had very little in the way of policies and procedures. And you can't function in today's world without those guidelines and oversight and review of what's going on. I mean, any jurisdiction can go really bad really quickly if the finance office. Now, we didn't go really bad. We just didn't have the policies and procedures.
Right.
I'm not talking about past people doing things badly. It's just that they
Didn't have any guidance.
we had no guidance. As an example, the Southport, I'm sure, as other jurisdictions do, they have public partnerships, public-private partnerships, in which an organization might come to them, to the jurisdiction, and want to partner to accomplish something for the benefit of the city. And then they're going to go out and they're going to collect money towards that fund.
Right.
There has to be rules of how the
Yes.
money's collected, how it's accounted for.
Accountability.
2 people counting the money, not husband and wife counting the money. No, no, no. We can't be doing that stuff. Well, we didn't have any rules and regulations on anything like that.
I think that Southport was pretty laid back and has been for quite some time. I have been here for 30 years. When I first came to this area, Southport really was not organized. Okay, if you looked at Howe Street then and Howe Street today, you'd think you were looking at a totally different city. It is so beautiful now, and it is much better as far as accountability and organization goes, because it was the waterfront pretty much when I moved here. And most of the buildings were not kept up.
Yeah, it was economically depressed.
It was.
So it was a fishing village. Mm-hmm. And those fishing villages up and down the East Coast, I'm familiar with that.
Right.
Well, never were going to generate a lot of money. Mm-mm. And then the Manhattan fleet started to shrink. And in fact, I think the last Manhattan processing plant is in Reedville, Virginia.
Right.
So they go all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico and come back up, and they collect the fish. But now they have to ship them all the way up. They used to be able to stop off at places like Southport and Fish Factory Road and drop off the fish, and they could be processed, so they didn't have that long turnaround. Mm-hmm. But as that shrunk down, that was the only industry Southport had. So it's easy for a new administration to throw rocks at the older administrations about not doing anything. But it was more a matter of just money. There was no money to do any of those things.
No, there wasn't.
You had boarded up buildings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You could buy, I was talking to someone just the other day, they bought 6 lots with houses on them for like $60,000. Mm-hmm. You know, you could buy the whole town for $1 million.
Right.
And now you can't buy a lot for $1 million. So you have to put yourself, when you're talking about how you want to get from point A to point B, you have to understand how A started. What was it about? And it is not necessarily about efficiency or personalities. Well, it is about that, but it also is about economics. And if you don't have the economic infrastructure, you can't move ahead.
No. Mm-hmm. That's correct. And what a change we have seen. I believe that the folks in Southport are very fortunate to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate
I followed your campaign. I read just about everything that you said and where you wanted to see Southport be and go. And I think they're very fortunate to have you.
Well, now, talk is nice. Execution is better.
I understand that.
And now, the board has to come through. And it's really, as you know, in the North Carolina statutes, the mayor has limited ability to
Yes.
move the needle. You have to be the cheerleader and the coach and all of that to get people to think through their position. It may be different from yours, so you don't throw sand at each other. But you have to mentor people. I have a lot of experience. I've had 40 years of experience in government, at the state level, at the municipality level, and at the federal level. And I think I bring all those things that that experience brings to me, including the mistakes that those jurisdictions made, including the mistakes that I made, to the table to say, there's better ways of doing this, and let's look at that. And so here's a way. So if we have to modify a little bit, let's modify it, but let's move the needle forward.
Right. And that is exactly what Southport needs and has needed.
And we're moving in that direction. The board is, we had a to-do list of major infrastructure projects. It started when I first looked at it, it was 38, it got up to 44, and all we did was add to the list. We talked about the list. We talked about the things on the list. The one thing we never did was they would take a red stamp and go, complete.
Exactly.
There was no completes. We never finished. We never got over the line to finish anything. Well, if you look at that list now, there's a lot of, just in 7 months, there's a lot of completes.
Great.
And there's other things that will be completed in the next 6 months that will help us move down the road.
May I ask what your, let's say, the project that you would say was the most difficult since signing on board as mayor?
I think it's not a project, it's a philosophy.
Okay.
It's a philosophy of looking for best practices, regardless of where they come from. And we don't have to invent the world. And there is a number of people in Southport that believe that they don't have to look outside. They can look always internally and always resolve their issues with what they thought. And that simply is not the way of the world any longer. You have to look outside. I was talking to Howie Franklin the other day.
We love Howie.
And Howie's a great storyteller. And
Yep.
Howie is the head of the Jetport, the Southport Oak Island Jetport. And Howie grew up on Long Island. And he likes to call himself a Southerner because he lived on the south side of Long Island. If you drew a line straight across Long Island, I lived on the other side, on the North Shore. It's a distance of 14 miles, okay? So
Right.
we joke about that all the time.
I'm sorry, y'all ain't Yankees.
I
I was born and raised in North Carolina.
So there's a town on Long Island called Sag Harbor. It was originally a small fishing village.
Right.
Okay. They were able to do something correct. So I was back in that town 2 years ago. It was the same town that I left 50 years ago. It's longer on the main street. It's gone this way. It has not gone up. It has not gone glitzy. Another town just down the road would be East Hampton. So when I was a kid, we would go out to do sports in East Hampton, and literally you could shoot a cannon down the street on a Saturday, certainly in the off season, and not hit anything. It was a farming village. Well, now it's nouveau riche. It's got every glitzy store that's in Manhattan has an outlet in East Hampton. It's the Billy Joel new money. All that new money is out there.
Okay.
But Sag Harbor didn't fall prey to that. They didn't fall prey to the big money coming out and wanting to change the flavor of the town to support all the rich people who were moving out there. They kept it the same little village. And they did that under tremendous pressure from these developers who came in and
Sure.
wanted to go up and sideways and glitzy. And when you walk into that town, even the newer buildings, you would think you're walking into a town that's 100 years old because they kept it just that way.
Wow.
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful town.
That requires the local government, though, to have certain tools at their disposal.
Well, my question was, how do we go get those? How do we look at those tools, whether they're applicable to us or not? And the first thing you get is Well, first of all, it's up north, so we're not going to talk about it.
That's just closed-minded in my book.
That I am too, regardless of where they are. And we have other issues like that. I said parking is a big issue in Southport. Okay, you know we are like the downtown of Brunswick County. We have the downtown section as you can walk around, and people come there all the time. And certainly starting this past weekend, they come and they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So parking is an issue. So we have a company that's looking at parking for us. We have a comprehensive plan that's looking at parking, but we have to discuss that in earnest about, okay, let's build a parking garage over here and we'll shuttle the people in. Well, I've been to towns that have done that. You take a Kennebunkport, you take a Bar Harbor, you take any of those destination towns.
Yes.
On Saturday, you cannot walk down the street
No,
because there's too many people.
exactly.
They figured out the parking aspect, but they didn't figure out the people crush.
Pedestrian side.
And you can't get into anything. You can't get into even a boutique because there's people everywhere.
You wait in line forever.
So how do you manage that? Do you just, and what they did like in South Sag Harbor, oh, I guess there's no parking. Bye. They only could have capacity for so much pedestrian traffic, and they limited the parking to that number. So
Okay.
that then there's a normal exchange of people coming in and going out. But sometimes if you get there, there is no parking readily available for you because the town on a Saturday is maxed out. And so I'm not sure that that's where I want to be, but I want to look at that. If we do paid parking on Howe Street, our main street, do we squeeze, let's assume we do paid parking on Howe Street and the residents of the city of Southport are free because they already pay taxes for all of that stuff. And you only charge the people that are coming in. So in other words, you try to monetize the tourists.
So coming from BSL, I need to go to Charlotte then.
Or you can go to, or you can go to another jurisdiction very near you and pay $20 a pop. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Did it this weekend.
This is true.
So the downside of that is we're going to squish them into the residential neighborhoods under the right-of-ways. The people that come in say, well, I don't want to park, I don't pay, but I can turn right here, and the right-of-ways in Southport are massive, 99 feet in many
Yes.
places. So there's huge places where you can park that looks like somebody's front yard, but it's really not their front yard. So
That's the issue they're having on Oak Island in a lot of places.
correct. So how do you do that? And I don't want to take 10 years of trial and error. I want to look to see how did other people do it.
What's working? What does it? Let's see what we
Correct.
can compile and make fit
Right.
our situation.
And then you have to look at, so you have all the tourists in. If you're not from this state, you think, well, they're making a lot of money on the sales tax. Oh, no. Southport gets 1.9% of all the sales tax in Brunswick County.
Yep.
That's what we get. And I ask these questions, and I'm thunderstruck that there's no answer. All I want to know is how much money in sales tax did the city of Southport generate, and how much money out of that did we get back? Those two numbers. And the state and county claim they can't give this to us.
Oh,
They
for
can tell
goodness
us
sakes.
that of all the sales tax money that came back to Brunswick County, we get 1.9%. But that's a misleading figure because you take Leland, they're going to generate more sales tax to us. So we're
Of
going to get,
course.
but it's based on population.
Mm-hmm.
So some areas that have bigger populations but they really don't generate sales tax, they're getting more money than we do because our population is only 4,600.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying about the parking, okay? And in my opinion, if somebody really wants to walk around down in Southport, they'll find a place to park. It doesn't matter if you have it or not, they'll find one.
So far, yes.
Yeah, and I think that it has always been that way. I think the parking would take away from the city. I mean, as far if you had
Oh, I'm not a big proponent of paid parking. we're the sale of one piece of land away from critical mass.
Right.
And that piece of land is the flat area in the yacht basin. So you have all the bars and restaurants along the waterfront, and they make kind of an L. In the middle of that is a piece of vacant land that on any given, certainly Friday, Saturday, and Sunday,
Yes.
hundreds of cars are parked on
Yes.
there for free. It's not city property.
So that does not belong to the city.
Oh, no. So
Oh, for
once it's
goodness
sold,
sakes.
we have, all those cars are going to have to go to
Somewhere else.
somewhere else.
So they could go in any day and decide they're going to.
No more. Put up a gate.
Oh, my goodness.
If they were smart, until they sell it, they just, hey, paid parking.
But they
Until
haven't.
they sell it.
Well, fortunately, they have not done any of those things. They just allow people to park there. But we don't own that land.
I had no idea.
And the value of the land now is very expensive. There's a lot of things that could have been done, regardless of your politics. But who was president, all of that, put that aside. Between 2016 and 2020, you could have borrowed money for nothing. Our fire chief was smart enough to do that. He refinanced the fire department building,
Yes.
and he got it at 1%.
Exactly.
A 1%, the inflation, you're making money by doing that. And I can't say that Southport was alone. Most jurisdictions froze. They did not borrow the
Right.
money when they could have
Right.
for virtually nothing, and gotten some of the more critical things, not the feel-good stuff,
Right.
but the
Stormwater,
Right.
those
type
things, the
issues,
big
yeah.
issues.
The
They could have
needed.
they could have started to manage that, but across this whole area, I didn't see anybody. Now there may be somebody out there. I don't know of it that understood the times that they were in. Businessmen understood it,
Yes.
but getting that thought process to municipal leaders has not been an easy transition, that they had to take advantage of that. So now, with the interest rates going up, and they may go up further after November, who knows what's going to happen, we've lost that opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the real kicker that I have of past administrations, that they didn't realize it. When I came in, I guess I was just when I first became an alderman. I asked the magic question: "What's our bond rating?"
And
Do you
on
know what
that,
your bond rating is? Oh, you actually know what your bond rating is, but we did not know. We hadn't had a bond rating since
Right.
2002,
yep.
and we had missed 9 of the 11 audits on time,
Wow.
which I claimed would impact our bond rating because it shows that we can't manage we can't keep our
Finances.
books even.
Yeah.
Yep.
9 out of 11 times we missed and the first time I saw that, as I was sitting in the audience seats, and the auditor came in and he said this line: "Yet again, you missed your audit." And nobody flinched on the board. And I went, "Yet again? What does yet again mean?"
Yep.
Well, that was it. 9 out of 11 times we missed the audit. And that should never have happened.
And on that note, we are going to take a quick break and pay some bills. So think about that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, everyone, to All Things Brunswick. Today we have with us a very special guest, Mayor Rich Alt from Southport. Thank you so much for joining us. And
pleasure.
we are talking about that lovely little community of Southport down by the water that I absolutely love. Would you tell us a little bit about what's happening with your police department? You've been moving it around a little bit, and now it needs to go somewhere.
That wasn't very nice, Mary.
Yes, I'm not sure that came out the way you intended it.
Well, I mean,
It needs to find a home.
I'm pretty
It does.
direct,
So
so
the police department at one time was in what's often referred to as the old city hall,
Right.
the old county center. And then it moved to Indian Trail, and then it moved to the current city hall, and now we're moving it out of there up to a rented space near the Walmart, because the current city hall is too small. We could go on for hours about the construction
where
of the
are you
building and why we
moving
would
to near Walmart?
As you drive in from the traffic light, there's a hair cuttery on your left-hand side.
Oh, yes,
There's
okay.
a building that's
Yep.
attached to that. It used to be a bank.
It used to be
So they have
U.S.
they'll have a big
Cellular and a
evidence vault
bank.
because
So you're
there's a big
you're
safe
doing
there.
like we did in BSL. We took an old bank and they
Correct.
retrofitted it. And
That's what they're doing. So we have a lease for that. We didn't buy it or anything. So we're leasing that until we
Okay.
can decide what we're going to do. There's various plans that have come up. There's one is we buy a piece of land and we build a building on it, and what does that cost? And another option is to remediate the old city hall, county office building, and then put them back in the first floor. That's another option. Unfortunately, when I can't tell you which hurricane, some hurricane, made a hole in the roof, and water got in, and those things happen.
Yeah.
They put a new roof on, but they never cleaned up the water mess. Modern business practice. So the inside of the building has so much mold in it that it's uninhabitable now.
Right.
oh God.
So, and it's been sitting there for 8 years. 8 years.
And which building is this?
It's on Moore. Yeah, it's on Moore Street.
Okay.
Where St. Philip's Church is.
Right.
If you go towards the center of town, just a half a block, it's right there.
Okay. Yeah.
There's the St. Philip's New Church. There's Chapel of the Cross, built in 1840. And then you have the old city hall, old county office, built in 1854.
Right.
There's 17 antebellum courthouses in the state of North Carolina still in existence. There's only one in this whole region, and that is that building. So it has a lot of historical
It
value.
does.
And the upstairs chambers, which turned into a courtroom after a while for Brunswick County, I've only seen pictures of it because I haven't been allowed to be inside of it because of the mold. It's a really very pretty place, but we don't have a dedicated space for alderman meetings. So last week, we wanted to have a couple more meetings for budget hearings. We couldn't have them.
Oh my goodness.
We can't have them because we don't have any space. The community center was rented and Indian Trail was rented. So we don't operate because we don't have a space.
That's
Do you know if
sad.
anyone's looking into some of the historical preservation grants to help restore some of that, take care of the mold remediation and all?
8 years, nobody's done anything. 8 years, nobody's done anything. There was an MOU signed with a group, and they wanted to take over the building. They wanted us to originally rent it to them for $1 a year, and they wanted to turn it into an arts music center. Well, after 8 years, I do not know that any money has ever been generated to pass on to the next group. I'm going to ask that question because I don't know how much money, if anything, but it's the city, remember the fiduciary responsibility of aldermen and mayors is to do something. And they didn't do anything with it. They talked and they renewed the MOU every couple of years, but it was only an MOU, it was not a contract.
Right.
And we have to decide what are we going to do with that building. So we're going to vote in another 2 weeks on the beginnings. I think we're going to vote on it. Whether it gets passed is yet to, get
What
determined.
would you like to see happen with that building?
I think that we have to figure out one of the costs. So the last thing that has to be done, and they're doing it relatively soon, I think before July 1st, is the structural integrity. Why they did it in this method, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. We did a study on what it would take to remediate the problem. So once you start remediating mold and you pull stuff down, you then expose yourself to asbestos.
Right.
So we can encapsulate the asbestos so we don't have to rip it out. We can tear the walls out and remediate that part of it. That is somewhere between probably $600,000 and $700,000 to do that. Okay. Now you have bare walls and nothing in there. Mm-hmm. So the next part is, can a third party get money for a building that's going to be owned by the city?
Yes.
But the problem that you have with that is, if the city and the third party fall out of favor with each other,
Right.
who gets all the property?
Exactly.
Well, now the
city gets everything.
They can do it. They can go after grants like for historical preservation and all, and it's city, but the grant would be in the city's name, not a third party.
The city gets everything back.
Yeah.
Correct. You can also get money because you turn it into what's its original intent, a government building, and you get money that way. So you have to weigh all those pieces.
Yeah. And
against
you
the
need
fact
space.
that we can't have a meeting,
Yep.
and against the fact that we need probably $6 million, $6 million between something like that to build a police department. So how do you do all of that? Because if we're going to be building our police department because we're so close to the water, it has to be really reinforced. It doesn't have to be the size of the fire department, but it has to be the same quality as a fire department.
Right.
Because we're so close to the water that the building has to be able to stand up to the storm. Because you're going to use the police department probably as your second emergency operations center, your backup. And so you have to, when you live right on the water, those are the things you have to think about.
Yeah.
Now,
Brick
you're
and block and grout-filled concrete are kind of the number one for that parameter.
Correct.
and
You're not
and
throwing
the,
up at a little aluminum building.
Yeah.
No.
the individuals that live in this community own all of this prized property, and they do care, I believe, what happens in their community. How do they feel about that building?
I don't know.
I guess maybe
The only thing that I have to base it on is that there's been a program underfoot for 7 years. 2017 was the first MOU.
Wow.
How much money you got? You had 7 years to raise money. You had 7 years to do anything. We gave you the MOU.
Yeah.
So what have you done? That's the only way. I don't know. There might be another way to understand that. Now, I know the people that want it turned into an arts center and a music center are very passionate about it. But by just a rough count, there's 17 facilities that are, I'm sorry, I'm a capitalist. There's 17 facilities in Southport that have music.
Exactly. Yes.
We already have the Franklin Square Arts Center. That building belongs to Southport. We
Right.
rent it for $1 a year. It has all the art. We were fortunate enough to take one of the old schools, and it is a Brunswick Community Building, Brunswick Community College building, and it is dedicated solely to the arts. We have private businesses running all the way up Howe Street that have art classes.
Yes.
We actually have the Baptist Church has a building across the street, the Nash Street from their building, and it's just a nondescript red brick building, and they have at least 59 people taking art, and the only reason they only have 59 is because they can't get enough instructors. And I asked, do you have to be a Baptist? Are you going to try to convert me? No, it's just for the arts. It's just strictly for arts.
Yep.
So to be have people raise their voices and tell you that you don't like the arts unless you do it my way, that's a little hypocritical, because the city is involved in the arts.
Well, and what about the art of preserving the city's heritage? Its history.
Well, that's the other side. There's another side of the story. So how you judge the numbers on either side of this equation is not been well defined by me as how they do that. I know volume. I know who wins the volume contest. I just don't know who wins the numbers contest.
Right.
And so we are, in fact, going to have to make a decision relatively quickly after we remediate it. What are we going to do with it? And part of that will depend on what you've been talking about, sir, and that is who can get the money.
Yep.
So is there more money, quicker money, by turning it into a government center and using it for its original historic antebellum purpose?
And it can still be a historic destination for people to see, but a functioning one.
So
you can have
theoretically,
meetings and all
one option, it's only options, is to have the police department to be right down in downtown Southport. Remember that building is, it's not waterfront, but it's water view. In downtown Southport, you're looking at you're not only looking at the Cape Fear River and the ships coming in, you're looking at the harbor.
Yes.
That property, and right now, for the past 8 years, it has a piece of plywood on the front window. That is not the look that you're trying to get out.
No, it's sad because it's a beautiful building.
Now, the back end of it is not 1857. The back part was added on, I think, in the 1950s. I'm not really sure when it was added on. It just doesn't have the same. But the front part of it is that historic part of it, and there's something to be said for restoring it to that. It needs to be restored one way or the other, which is why I believe the board will vote to start financing the remediation of it, because no matter what we do with it, it has to be remediated.
Yes.
And waiting another year, talking and talking and talking, and never accomplishing that complete thing, stamping that 44th list.
Let's get it done.
Let's get something done. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Things have happened. Look at your museum, the Maritime Museum.
That's owned by the city.
I know.
Another $1 a year place.
I know.
And it's a beautiful building.
It is a beautiful building.
And it's a great asset for the city. So
Right.
that has turned into a great asset. I love going in. I take my grandchildren in there every time they come down to do that. I think that's a terrific building. But at the same token, at some point, you have to use your city resources for city business. Otherwise, we're going to go broke. We're just coming out of being broke. I don't want to go back into the hole again.
Well, and that's part of with the ideal of, and again, like you were saying, you'd have to look at the numbers.
Right.
But when you look at restoring that and preserving the heritage of the community versus buying land, building a building, I would lean toward the heritage part.
Have you looked at the price of some dirt in Southport?
Yeah. But that's what I'm getting at. You already own this piece of dirt.
Correct.
So you're already that much ahead of the game.
And it's people can find your police department. They're right there and
I know.
right where you are.
I think that would
And
be
where's all the
ideal.
business at during the busy season is
Well, here's another
all
side
in
of the
that
coin.
area.
Here's another
So-
aspect of it. They want to have outdoor music.
Right.
Okay. It's sitting next to the Chapel of the Cross, which has weddings. So the Chapel of Cross is right there. It's separated from the new St. Philip's Church, and in the middle is where they what's the word I'm looking for? Where they put the cremation ashes in.
Cemetery, the mausoleums.
Yeah. So that's right there. So you're having basically a funeral type service. You're having weddings. You're having church events. So you have St. Philip's, St. Timothy's, the Methodist Church, and the Southport Baptist Church in that triangle there.
Yes.
They were stuck there, or put stuck there. They were established there as the center of the town, the historic center of the town, to go with the county seat.
Right.
You know, and so they were all put there for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got to have loud speakers outside blaring music while you're trying to have any one of those three churches trying to have an event,
Funeral or wedding.
and all of those things, you have to go up at the 30,000-foot level and look down and keep bringing your focus tighter and tighter to see what you're going to impact when you do that.
They want to have music right there.
Out on the lawn.
What
They
happened?
wanted originally to put a rooftop bar on an
Oh,
1850. Their diagram has a rooftop bar. Then they said, "Oh, well, we won't make it a bar." And I said, "Well, you'll be having liquor the floor below, right?" Yeah. What are you having a guard? You still want to build a
Good
rooftop thing? Come on.
You
The
have the
semantics is
garrison.
semantics, you know.
You have the garrison, you have the community building, you have music at both of those. They're far enough away from the churches.
You
that
have
that would
we
be
have
adequate.
you go down to the yacht base and we have more music than you can shake a stick
You
at.
do.
And then all the way up the street,
Yep.
you have the Haven. You have
Yeah.
the Tiki Bar. You have music everywhere. now.
Everywhere.
It's the most. Besides patriotism,
Mm-hmm.
because we
Absolutely.
every event we have red, white, and blue flags everywhere. Besides patriotism, the most thing that you can see the most in Southport is music, or hear the most
Yep.
is music. We just have it in all these establishments,
Yes.
and it's a wonderful thing to have.
It
All that thing
is.
is great. So, is the city taxpayers going to subsidize a organization to have more music, or do I just let the private sector handle that part of it for me?
I think music has its place,
Hmm?
and I believe that where it has been established is its place. That's my opinion. Okay.
And there's going to be more bars actually made, because there's going to be a bar with the night next door to ABC store. That'll be a new bar.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's part of the issue that we have, is that if the only thing we're bringing in is bars,
I know.
then you're bringing in people from all over the community, all over the region to come to these bars, because it becomes a more and more place to come for bars.
Right.
And we don't have the parking. So, because the bars take a lot of people in at one time. You know, if I have a boutique, it's only going to have 4 or 5 people in it.
That's
If I have a
right.
bar, I'm going to have 100 people in it.
Yeah.
And so, how do you manage all of that, and what are you looking for? Now, it's hard to say, no, you can't have another bar,
I know.
but can you encourage something else to happen?
You've
See,
got
now you're thinking
And
like
that's-
I am.
So I want to encourage other types of businesses
Right.
to come in, and I would, there's an issue with this idea. I would like to have the first floor as commercial and the next second or third floor be residential, because we're desperate for workforce housing,
Yes,
not
yes.
Section 8 housing,
Right.
not all those other words.
Now, tell us about this. I see this ad in some of the local magazines and papers stating that there is construction in place for people such as first responders and teachers and those that cannot afford $2,000 to $3,000 rents per month. And it's
You've
supposed
seen
to be
construction for that?
yeah, it's supposed to be some kind of housing or apartment construction.
She's seen advertising. for
Yeah,
it.
near Southport.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I saw it one time.
Did
I
you
didn't
see
read
it?
it very well because
Yeah.
it looked more like sham or wishful thinking.
So there's been just lots of discussion about that.
Well,
Nobody's doing anything.
Nobody's doing anything because of the price of the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cost inefficient to do that.
so
If
when
you
they
did it inside the city limits.
okay.
If you did it inside the city limits, you can do it in the outside.
Well,
Now,
might
people say, well, then they can't walk to work. Oh, that life is like that.
Yeah.
I was a public servant for 30 years in Arlington. I lived 22 miles away from my employment
Right.
because I couldn't afford to live in Arlington. And so that is the way of the world.
It sure
But-
is.
I would like them to be closer than 22 miles because that would put me past 17.
Yes.
It's only 15 miles to 17. So I don't want them to have to live that far out. But the county is where that discussion has to take place, at the county level, their land. And so that has not materialized as much as I would like it to be.
That's
So if I could
sad.
build, the problem here's the devil's advocate to my own story, is that when you build residential, you have to supply parking. And the commercial lots on Howe Street do not have enough room in the back to allow for that parking.
Right.
So that's the downside. You can't have your residents parking on Howe Street because it takes away from the businesses because they'll leave their cars there for days on end. And so there's a downside to all of that. There are some lots that would accommodate that. But how we do that, I've talked to Habitat from Humanity a couple of times about what they could do, and they've looked at some land in Southport and have decided that it's not cost efficient for them to do it under their model, their business model. Now in Brunswick County, we usually think of Habitat as that one single-family home they just finished, and
Yes.
Habitat in Brunswick actually they built. I got the right number. About 8 houses on one street in Leland, all at the same time.
Right.
They're doing it in, I think it's a Calabash, it's down that area. They're doing the same thing down there.
Yes.
Because they were able to get the land cheap enough, and they got the zoning to do multifamily
Right.
units. And they were able to keep, your mortgage. And I'm not. There can be other organizations other than just Habitat, but that was the one. Your mortgage rate is dependent on your income. So as your income gets better, your mortgage rate could go up because they control the mortgage.
Right.
They've done some single-family homes on 50 Lakes in BSL.
Right.
They've done, I think, about 8 of them already.
Yeah. So but we don't have that luxury of the land anymore. That passed us by probably 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first came down in 2005, you could buy a waterfront property for $200,000. Right on Bay Street.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no. Now they're almost $2 million.
Yep. We're going to have to break again and pay some bills. So stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. We're sitting here having a chat with Mayor Alt from Southport, learning lots of details we didn't know. And again, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I got a question. Let
Go
me ask you
ahead.
one question. What would you like to tell the residents of Southport right now on? I know there's a lot of issues with different views on both sides, and some more contentious than others. What would you like the residents to know?
Well, for one thing, I want to make sure that this conversation we're having here, people understand that I'm throwing out ideas, that I am totally open to somebody convincing me that my idea is wrong. I don't find that to like hurt my feelings. My wife explains that to me all the time, so I'm used to that. So when we're talking about the old courthouse or the city hall, there's two kind of plans for that. The Board of Aldermen make that decision. The mayor does not make that decision. And quite frankly, the mayor may not even vote on it. Mayor only votes if there's a tie.
Exactly.
So those two topics have to be meted out probably by the Board of Aldermen to decide where they want the future to go. So this conversation should not be interpreted that the board is going anywhere because they haven't voted on anything yet. But
But they need to vote.
well, yes, we do need to vote, and as the mayor does have the ability to craft the agenda. So we got to get through the budget. Part of that is we got to do the vote on the remediation. If we don't do that, there's no sense having the rest of the discussions.
Right.
And after we get done all of that, then we can take the time, really just a few months, because we need to push. It's either yes or no. You had 8 years actually to discuss this. I don't know how much more time you need, but the old board wanted to take it forever. They just pushed. Every time it came up, I just would shake my head like, how can you push this down the road?
Make a decision and
Just
move
do
on.
something, whatever it is. We got to move. That building is an atrocity based on the fact that it's so historic, and there's only one in this whole region that fits that bill.
I know.
We need to get the plywood off the windows, please. But to answer your question, the one thing is, I have to say that I've never been in a town, city, where public input has mattered so much. The city in the past 2.5, 3 years has faced a number of big hurdles. And they were resolved because the public came in.
Right.
We had a big development that was proposed for 1,542 units and 80,000 square feet. Many of us thought it was going to overwhelm our infrastructure to do that. But the going thought of the old board members was to give it to them, okay? 500 people came in at a minimum to say, please don't do that.
Wow.
9 people spoke in favor of it. I'm not a math genius, but I understood that would be a sentiment on that was 9 people, and 4 of them were elected officials. So now you're down to 5 other individuals who came in and spoke in favor of it.
Right.
What did the board finally do? Well, they actually did nothing, regardless of what the Russian history has said. We actually did nothing. The developer pulled the permit.
Wow.
We did not vote on that. So if you ask people, they'll pound their chest and say, yes, we voted against that. No, you did. I almost start laughing about this stuff. Man, I was sitting in the room. I was right there. So if I had thought about this earlier, I would have written them all down. I think the citizens are 5-0. There was a whole big discussion, lengthy discussions about conditional zoning. And it really came down to whether they thought the city elected officials could adequately implement it. That really was the crux of the discussion. And once again, massive numbers of people, month after month coming in. Really, you might get them in for one day normally if you got them in at all. They even knew what was going on. They would come in month after month, and conditional zoning fell by the wayside because there's other ways you can do the same thing. You can do a development agreement. You can do that now. So all these different issues came before us, and the board was starting to go to the left. I don't mean politically, just go off to the left, and the citizens came in and they redirected the ship to go right. That has
So
been.
what you're saying is ultimately this decision will be made by the citizens.
Well, I think it will be made by decisions, and I'm not referring to noise.
Right.
We've all been in chambers meetings in which people come in who are very passionate about their thing, and they believe that if they make enough noise, you have to do it their way. That's not really what our job is. Our job is to weed through the noise and actually look at and talk to people. So you meet people in the streets. What are they thinking? I mean, this past weekend, I went to a number of events that, Memorial Day events, and people constantly came up to me to give me opinions. I wasn't asking for them, but give me opinions on that building, give me opinions on other aspects, the right-of-way issue that's boiling up, all kinds of things. So I count that as well. And they're not yelling at you. They're having a discussion with you.
How they feel about it.
How they feel about it. So you have to weigh all of that. And then you have to, it's a representative government. Okay? That's why I go back to my poli-sci degree. But it's a representative government. You elected us to do the right thing. And no matter what way you're going to go, you're going to annoy somebody.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
The question is, how rancorous are you going to be over that decision? So I have to say that national politics is seeping into Southport and every other jurisdiction.
Of course.
In which, if I don't get my way, if my team doesn't win, you're all evil people and we're going to yell at you.
Yeah.
And that isn't the way things have been done here, but it's the way things are being done now here. And you have to look them in the eye and say, your team lost. I'm sorry about that, but that's just what happened. For whether it's partial economic reason you should do things, whether it's because 500 people came in and 9 people told you to go somewhere else and you went with the 500, all of those things weigh.
That's right.
And so you have to weigh that. As they kind of understand what a legislator, which is what aldermen and mayors are, they're legislators, and all the things they have to take in, process, and give the best answer. Now, if it's based on my friend getting something, that's a whole different story. If you look at the conflict of interest laws in North Carolina, they're different. For most things, as long as I'm not giving money or directing business to my wife, I can direct it to my kids, my parents, my friends.
Right.
And I'm legally allowed to do that. To me, no, I'm not directing money to any of those people, but the law says I can. So as long as we're doing it in the best interest of the citizens. And the board that we have now, while we have 7 people who have 7 different opinions on everything, I don't know to any of them are doing it for any malicious or we just have different opinions of where the best road is. I like that.
And I believe that you have your work cut out for you. And we are at the end of our evening, and I cannot thank you enough for joining us.
My pleasure.
This
Thank
has
you very much.
been very interesting.
Okay.
Yes.
And you all have a very good day.
And we wish that you would come back and see
Give us an update.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Alt from Southport, for joining us today. Please join us again next week, folks, for another interesting guest. And tell your family and your friends and anyone you talk to, tune in to All Things Brunswick. Thank you, Todd.